Good morning, and today we will be looking at the Beethoven Tempest Sonata. Now, we'll be only looking at the first movement here, so if you are looking for an analysis for the second and third movement, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. I'm just only doing the first movement. And I'd like to show you just an overall general analysis of it, more like a structural analysis, really from someone who's, just by listening to it, what's the most important elements to be listening to? So I'm not doing a harmonic analysis of this. We'd be here all day and it would be very dry and boring. And really that's the reason why you go to a conservatory, is to learn all the harmonic analyses and whatnot. So I'm just going to do it like an overall overview of the piece, of the first movement, and why it's so extraordinary. So let's go ahead and play the exposition, and keep in mind this recording is tuned a little bit slower and a little bit lower so I don't get a YouTube copyright strike. So here we go. Here's the exposition of the Tempest. Okay. So, what's our first impression of this piece? We can hear a lot of elements going through here. A lot of stuff is happening in a very short amount of time. And let's just give you some perspective. This is 1802, give or take, we're talking about when he composed this. And just to give you some more perspective, 1792 is the death of Mozart. Haydn is still around, but Haydn's an old geezer and is really not making too much of a splash. I think it was 1805 is when he wrote the Seasons and the Creation, one of his big creations. But I mean, this is just to give you an idea. But Beethoven, I mean, from 1795 to really till his death, he's really kind of the dominant composer from 1795 to really until he died, really 1827, give or take. I mean, Schubert was in there. I mean, Schubert started, I forget. I think it was 1797, I think is when he was born. So Schubert didn't really start doing anything until around 1815, give or take. So Beethoven had a good at least 20 years of historical dominance, if you'd like. So this is right in there. This is right in the very beginning. This is his middle period, his early middle period, I like to think of it as. So let's get rid of all this garbage. So just to give you some historical background. Okay, so what's different? So you probably, if you're looking at sonata, you probably are aware of how sonata form works. You probably know that it's supposed to start in an allegro form, but he starts in largo, which is not right. No, you don't start in largo unless you're trying to be Beethoven, in which case I guess that would make sense because he is. So let's go ahead and first of all mark out all the sections. So let me find a good pen. So let me choose a color. What color do you guys like? Let's do blue. Let's do blue. So let's mark out all the big sections. So from this point until measure 20, I'm not going to be necessarily always right about this. I'm calling this the introduction. The introduction because, and you can argue this one way or the other depending on who your professor is, who your teacher is, and what they want you to do. I think of this as an introduction because it really hasn't established a key until this moment. We don't feel a sense of consistent, tonality. We're always modulating through here. We're not in a key per se until this moment right here, measure 20. So, and also it's not in a normal tempo. It's not an allegro tempo until really here. But even so, this is kind of it's modulating. So I say I vote for this is introduction material. From this point on, of course, we can call this the exposition. This is where the proper exposition starts. The exposition. Okay. Exposition. Okay, at this point, this is where I would call transition material. Transition material all the way up to measure 40. Right up here. Because clearly we're modulating. I mean, we're leaving the key of D minor. So therefore we call this transition material. And up until this point, this is where we get new material. And theme 2, I would call this theme 2. I guess I should go back and mark this as theme 1. This part right here is what I'm thinking of, is theme 1. And then if you really want to be clear, I mean, this is kind of in conjunction with this part right here, theme 1 right here. But we'll see later that he breaks these two elements apart. So he splits this theme in half and uses them individually. Like again, right here, he's only leaving the first half of it together. And you could say maybe he's fragmenting it, but anyway. So then, so we're on the 5 of 5. 5 of, in this case, minor 5, so A minor, not A major. Bump, here we go, this part. This is the big moment. This is where we're finally in 5. So in this case, A minor. Okay, moving on. This is, again, more transition material happens right here, right there. Because we got this double slurs, descending diminished 7th chord, which goes into a very, very wild section right here, which is really still transition material. We're not really, we're definitely not in any key right here. Let's see. Bottom, and still going. It's not really until we get this cadence right here where we have the closing theme. Which again is in 5. Up until this point, we've got a lot of stuff happening, but we have a very big 5-1 cadence, which happens right here. Okay. And then you can almost end the piece if you wanted to right here. Bum 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 bum. You could I mean, this is the moment where you can just get up and walk away, and people might get mad at you, but people would not feel unsatisfied if you stopped right here. And then repeat, and then development section obviously starts boink from this point on. Okay, development section. We're taking, again, the very beginning of the beginning of the exposition. And then we're just playing around with this up until the big moment. Let's see, where are we at? Right here. This is where we have our pedal. When our pedal on the 5, which is signaling a return to 1, or also signaling, yeah, no, I'm right, yeah. No, that's right, recapitulation. Signaling the recapitulation return. And then here's where things get a little fuzzy and confusing in this sonata, and this is where sonata form really Beethoven starts to screw with it. Because you think, oh, yeah, here's the return, here's the recapitulation. But nothing is so clearly, as we'll see later. This, and I'll come back to this, is called transition material. I'm calling this transition material up until this moment right here. This is going to be proper recapitulation. Capitulation in actually, it's not in 5. What am I thinking of? It's in 1. It's in 1. It needs to be in D. Okay. And then expected as you would expect. Normal, 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 normal. All right. And here we go. Coda right here. And just a very humble coda. Nothing too extraordinary. We have the second movement coming here. So if you break it apart in that, and that's all you need, then there you go. But now we're going to get into more of the nitty-gritty and more of the interesting stuff. So let's go for it. So Beethoven begins with a roll to really bring us into the piece. Let's get a different color. Let's do green. So he starts off very quietly, as we can see here. He has in cut time, he's got 5 different tempo markings, which is kind of a big what moment, because if you're writing a sonata, you're supposed to write in allegro. But he doesn't do that. He begins the piece as largo, and then he jumps into allegro with these double slurs. And this is this little motive I'm going to call A. As we'll see later, he's going to develop this motive right here. Now you might say, oh, well, he develops this motive. Well, no, he doesn't. He brings it back, certainly, like down here, but he doesn't do anything with it. We'll reach the 5 right here, and you might expect him to come back to 1. He doesn't do that. He comes back to C major, right down here. I'm not going to go into that. One thing I'd also like to make a point of is that, I don't want to do blue, let's do purple. In this whole entire piece, this whole first movement, he's actually using a lot of first inversion chords. First inversion chords are rather ambiguous. They're less stable than root position chords. And the whole piece is kind of balanced upon ambiguity, because you have he has this kind of material where it's very soft, very dreamlike, and then he has this very reality kind of slap in the face right here. jigga 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 jigga. So very just transcendental, you could almost say, and then very hard, very, very, I mean, reality, essentially. So, I mean, that's my take on it. I mean, you can make whatever metaphor you want for it. And so he kind of alternates back and forth. And then finally this kicks in, and this is a good example of part writing. So he's got, so we have this. So you always want to write in, as a good rule of thumb, contrary motion is really what you want to be always striving for in music if you want to have good contrast, because you can see these lines are going up and this line is going down. One is going towards, the other one, they're all both going towards. One's going up, the other one's going down, or vice versa. That's a good rule of thumb. You always want to try to achieve that. That's just good writing. You can hear everything very clearly and just a lot more cleanly, not just in counterpoint writing, but just an overall general good composing. That's just good writing. So keep that in mind. And then he brings back this double slur, and in order to heighten this line right here, you can see this, you can look at this, you can draw. Yeah, just by looking at it, you can see it's a mountain right here. He's building. He does a couple things. He increases the line. He increases the intervals. You can see we've got very small intervals at the beginning, and he's getting bigger. You got fourths, you've got sixths, then you've got sevenths, and you've got an octave right here. And this gives more and more tension. You've got syncopations. You've got this crescendo right here. You've got these diminished seventh chords, which are all building, and you've got the highest point right up here at forte on a 1/6/4, which is the climax of this passage right here. So incredible tension and resolution. And then we're right into the heart of the music. So I call this theme 1 because you'll hear this comes back and he'll develop this in the development section. And that's actually the only thing he'll be playing with. And he brings back a little bit of this though, but it's less important. So from this point on, you've got 1 playing through here, you've got 5 in here, then he brings back 1 once more, and then he starts to modulate. He starts to leave. Again, I'm not going to do harmonic analysis through here. And you can see he's increasing the note values, or I'm sorry, increasing the register. So he's going from E, he's just bringing it up to F sharp. He's chromatically going up and up and up and up. Then he stops in this F, again on this diminished, diminished seventh. Bong, chung, bum. And then bam, we're writing new material right here. Okay. By the way, this is a really fun passage to play with the left hand. This is why Beethoven is such a great composer. Part of the reason why. So he's then going through here. He's got this left hand, and you can see also another element. He's got this pedal tone, this E, which is the dominant 5 pedal tone right here. So, and the reason he has this here, you can see just consistently throughout, is he's giving us a ground to stand on. He's giving us a floor, essentially. Everything else is happening above it. But this is essentially his floor. So that's why he's got that there. And you can see he's really, these are very agitato, these very just abrupt, these double slurs, and he's just building. He's really taking advantage of the register of the piano. So let's talk about this section right here. For that, let's choose a different color. Let's choose red. Okay. So this section, if you really look carefully at it, look at the top line right here. This is more or less the retrograde of the second part of theme 1 right here. Ba-da-da-da. How it kind of just snakes around this A chromatically. You've got, these half steps away from A, which are very dissonant. So, and it's going backwards. Bum, 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 bum. And when something goes backwards in music, we call it retrograde. Okay. All right, so we call this the retrograde, but it's not exactly the retrograde. So, I mean, he's got some artistic liberty to make the music sound coherent. So that's okay. All right, and then another good thing that all great composers do is, let's say, if you want this to be extended, I mean, you can just repeat this as it is, very bland, but that's kind of boring. So instead, he throws it up an octave and repeats it. And then for the third time, because you can't do the same thing twice, or at least not, especially not 3 times, he then starts to fragment it. Bum 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 ba da dum bum. And you can see he's also having a little bit of a decrescendo right here. Which is kind of counterintuitive if you think about it, because this line is moving up, but he's asking for it to get quieter. So whenever you move up, the natural tendency, when you get higher on an instrument, the natural tendency is to get louder. But he's asking for the exact opposite. It's like, okay, yeah, you're going up, but get quieter, because here's this piano. And this is a very important dynamic that he puts here. If he does not put this here, this whole passage would not make any sense up until this forte. Let me explain to you why. He does not write any crescendo from this piano up until this fortissimo. Instead, what he does is we have to focus on these sforzandis, okay? These accents right here. Now let's look at them a little bit closer. So first of all, we're in the bass, and also look at the bass. So he's got this flat 2, also called the Neapolitan 6. So we're focusing on that, and this is the dissonant interval. Bum bum ba da bum, and again that's the same thing as what we've heard before. So he's at the very low end of the keyboard, very, very low. And he's building. This is another building section. Whenever you want to build, you can't start forte and then build to fortissimo. It's not as effective rather than starting at piano or pianissimo, then building to fortissimo. This is a much more effective use of dynamics. And Beethoven definitely knows that and is aware of it. So, and another reason is, again, he's starting at the very low point in the right hand. He's starting right here, and these sforzandis are getting a little bit higher each time, well, the exception of this one. And again, the high point is accompanied by the dynamic fortissimo, which makes total sense. And then he asks for subito piano right here. And then again, right back into the absolutely just the gutters of the piano right in the very beginning. This is just now this passage. This is a really unique passage because a beginning or an amateur composer who might be writing this sonata might write this. So all this is, this passage, this right hand, very simple, which is basically just coming from this right here. That's all it is, really. So instead of ba-dum, ba-dum, it's now ba-dum, it's coming down. Bum, 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 ba-dum. You can also be coming from here. I mean, there's clearly a connection. So a natural tendency might be to just kind of walk your way down, without throwing it up the octave. You might throw this up an octave and just, walk down, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. But by doing it the way Beethoven did it, by throwing it up and down octaves and changing the register, there's a lot more contrast. I mean, you're throwing it up and down the octave, and you can clearly hear it's different. But in reality, there's a lot more balance by going up and down like this, because this line is ascending. This left hand is very slowly just trudging its way forward and up. And then this is a very nice touch, just having a little bit of that straining tenor voice in the left hand. Well, it all comes together. And then here we have finally the closing theme of the exposition. Okay, with this, again, this pedal E that we saw in the earlier part. Let me show you again in case we missed it. In this part right here, this E. Okay. And then this is a very kind of deceiving. You might think, oh, it's just going down, but no, it's actually building up. So this line is in true going up. And instead of going up with it, left hand is just going down. So they're just moving away from each other. And then this is a very common technique in piano music, is also good writing, switch hands. And he does this several times. He goes ahead and syncopates this just to kind of propel it forward. By syncopating something, you're giving it a little bit more drive. And then again, switching hands again. Bum, 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 bum. And then one more time. Yeah, right here. Bum, 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 bum. 5, 1. Bum, 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 bum. Then this is just a turn, essentially, to bring us back to the repeat of the exposition. Wow, that was a lot, right? So, with that all in mind, let's go ahead and listen to it again with fresh ears, keeping all of this in mind. So let's go ahead and listen to the exposition again. All right, so I hope that makes a little bit more sense. And let's go ahead and jump into the development section, and let's listen to how he goes through all that. All right, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about this section later on, but let's just put it right there. All right. So, really interesting development section. Very brief, rather short, and he's only developing one theme, more or less. And I think you could probably pick that up. Don't really need to tell you. I think we could all hear that. He was using theme 1. And he was developing that. But before all that, he comes to this right here. He begins like he started the piece. So just in largo. And with all the sudden subito dynamic markings that have already been presented to us, we're kind of, these make us feel uneasy, these rolls. These rolls do. Because we know, I mean, what's he going to do with these? I mean, you have to listen to the piece as if you're listening to it for the first time. So we know Beethoven's going to do something with them. We know he's probably going to have us shit our pants right here, which he does. He really does. Very peaceful, very calm, and just pianissimo right here. So, and definitely he scares the living daylights out of us when he throws us right back into it, just hits us with this. And he's in the very odd key of F sharp minor. In relation to D minor, there really isn't too much. I mean, it's if this was in F minor, it might be more doable, because let's look. So D minor has 1 flat, F sharp minor has 3 sharps. So really not too much in common, but there are stuff in common. So I mean, again, whereas opposed to F minor has 4 flats. So anyhow, so we modulate here, and this is going to be important later, as we'll see. So we're back in the allegro, and really he's just developing this. I mean, you can pretty much see that right there. Let me move the microphone. Here we go. Let's do a different color. Let's do, come on, there we go. Let's do pink. All right, and he's developing this. And remember, as I said before, what's really important is first inversion chords. And he's using all that. A lot of these times he's using first inversion chords. He's very rarely using a root position chord. There is one moment, though, where we do get a root position chord, and that's right here. On this C major arpeggio right here. This is a very wonderful moment right here. Boom, 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 boom. But then he throws us right back into a first inversion right here. That's really the only first inversion chord he has in the whole development section up to this point. Or I'm sorry, root position chord. And this is the wrong spot. This is not where the pedal point is. This is where it begins. The pedal point begins right here. That was my fault. And the reason I call this a pedal point is because it's got this pedal A, which is quivering between this G sharp right here. And so I call this all the pedal point, and right, remember, pedal point is what directs us back to the recapitulation. And he does this, and he has this rather aggressive pedal point motive, kind of throwing us back into here. Bum 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 jung jung jung. This chord might not seem too extraordinary today, but man, back in 1802, this B flat clashing with this B flat clashing right here with, I'm sorry, the A right here is pretty harsh. So, and then he brings us back. He has this little monologue, rather. And he brings us back right here to the supposed recapitulation. Now, up to this point, the sonata has been pretty interesting, but nothing really revolutionary in the sonata form, really. But this is where it gets really wild. So, if you don't know the sonata, you're in for a treat. He brings back the largo, which, like as he had in the Exposition. But now he's got this. What in the world is this? He's got a little recitative. He's got a recitative in a sonata. You're not supposed to do that. And he has his own pedal, so it's very swimming-like. And the fermata picks up on the allegro like we've heard before. And then he has another recitative right here. And this one, whoops. This one is, if you're asked to write a sonata in your theory class or your form and structure class, this is a big no-no. Because he's modulating. He's modulating away from D minor. But this C major chord has already been causing us problems already, so he moves very far away. He moves to A flat, so, and then to make it even worse, he goes to freaking F sharp minor again, right here. So, I mean, this, I'm sorry, if Beethoven was in a theory class, he would get an F minus for this. This is not how you write a sonata. This is how you write a good piece of music, but this is not how you write in sonata form. Of course, there's certain liberties, and this is not a false recapitulation. You get the idea. This is not a false recapitulation, which is something we do find in Haydn sonatas, in Mozart sonatas, and certainly early Beethoven sonatas. But nothing to this kind of level of extreme. This is wild, and I call this a transition material because he's modulating. He's going to F sharp, and then he's going into, oh boy, this. I mean, he's modulating. So, and it's not until really this point when we've arrived on 1, but well, actually, technically 5 of 1. Okay, there's 1. Right there. So, very interesting way of writing a recapitulation. Or at least returning to the recapitulation. So, and this is all new material. We've never heard this before. And so he's probably like, oh crap, I'm lost. I completely have gone way too far. I'm in F sharp minor. How am I ever going to come back? And this is really a magical moment in the piece of music because you're lost. You're, as the listener, you expect, if you're going to listen to sonatas forever, you expect this to go the way of like the Exposition, but it doesn't. He abandons theme 1 completely and replaces it with this transition material, and then jumps back into theme 2 right here. So, I mean, what a wild way of doing this. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy. And then the rest of the recapitulation is more or less the same. You do get wonderful little Beethoven touches. You get this extremely dissonant clash right here on the sforzando, which basically is just this E flat is chromatic passing tone, essentially with this pedal tone in the soprano. You can see this is a pedal D, just clashing with the E flat. It's just, you can see it's just walking up chromatically. So that's just, I think, a result of the passage. But it's still a nice touch, especially just having it just tickling you with that sforzando right there. So then just little maybe minor touches like this, like that as well. And then coda, pretty humble. I would put the word as humble. I think this is a very appropriate way to end the piece. This wasn't the loud brash. This isn't the appassionata. I mean, it's a rather, I think humble is the best word to describe this. I think this is the right way of doing this, and this is just 1, D minor. All throughout here, no 1s or no 5s, no nothing, just plain old 1. Okay, I think that's about as much as I can tell you about it in a nutshell. So with that all in mind, let's go ahead and play it from that point on until the end. So let's go ahead and pick up, if you're following along in the score, I'm going to pick up around measure 120. So let's go ahead and do... Actually, I didn't play the big recapitulation, so let's actually play the recapitulation to the very end. So, actually I did play the recapitulation. Let's just do... Yeah, let's do 120, somewhere around there. So I'll start around there. I'm going to play to the very end without talking, and then, well, here we go. I just love the transition from the first movement to the second movement. Anyway, we're not talking about the second movement. I mean, that's just a wonderful way of connecting two movements together. It's so warm and inviting. But that's going to be more or less the Tempest Sonata first movement in a nutshell. I hope that that you found that interesting. I hope that that was useful, and I hope that you can. I hope if you're into piano, this is a good intermediate piece. It's a little bit on the tricky side, but it's not too difficult. It does take a little bit of practice to get it, but it's not completely impossible to play. So it's really fun. It's a good passage. Got a lot of good passages in there, and it's a really good piece in history that really pushed the sonata. Really one of the first piano pieces, that really started to push the sonata form even further. And we'll see, if you ever studied Beethoven, he's really the one that started push and break music. So, for better or for worse. So I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks, and have a good one.